In this video, we'll be taking up the first homework sheet on solving polynomial equations. The big focus of this sheet is not on word problems, just testing your ability to factor and just solve a polynomial equation. Now there is one word problem, but the next sheet will focus on the word problems. There's really not much to say about this sheet, except for the fact that when you have the chance, solve by grouping. If you can factor by grouping, please do so. If you can't, then you resort to factor theorem. So that's basically my strategy. And when you see quadratic factors, you should really check if that quadratic factor will give you real zeros or complex zeros. Oh, sorry, real roots or complex roots, because we're trying to solve equations, so we're calling these roots. Yeah, so if it's a quadratic factor you cannot factor, you have to investigate. You can't just assume that nothing's gonna happen. Okay, so question 1, really not much to say. Once you have it fully factored, regardless of the technique, apply the zero product property. I chose a different notation. If you like this, you can use that as well. It's up to you. Okay. For question 2, still not much to say, just factor. For question 3, it was partially factored for you. Okay, so they did a bit of the legwork for you, so you just have to fully factor. And these quadratic factors, I didn't use the quadratic formula because I felt that the discriminant was negative. I did the calculation in my head, and in fact it was negative. So since the discriminant was all negative, I didn't need to use a quadratic formula. I know that this quadratic factor will give me complex roots. It won't give me any real roots, so I don't have to investigate any further. All right, for 3D. Now this quadratic factor, yep, still no real roots, so I get 3 real roots. For 4, it's asking us for the x-intercept, so I have to solve for the real roots of this equation, and then that will give me the x-intercepts. Okay. Alright, so that's 4. I would say most of the homework in this chapter are quite tedious, or quite long, but you know what, this chapter is a lot more algebraically involved than the previous chapter. In the previous chapter, we're just talking, and really the algebra is very minimal. But in this chapter, it's a lot of factoring. It's a lot of challenging your number sense. So if you have strong number sense, then this chapter will be relatively easy. Okay, so for 4C and 4D, yeah, still not much to say. Ooh, 4C is a quintic. So please don't use factor theorem. I really hope you saw the factoring by grouping technique. D, convert that quartic to a quadratic, and then factor in different squares. For question 5, it's just a bunch of solving. Solve. It is good practice, so not much to say. I'll just let you look at my solutions here. Alright, and then finally for question 6, I just realized this is actually very similar to the problem we did in the worksheet, in the handout. So you have your box, and you have some relationship with the dimensions, generate the equation, solve that equation. I didn't do my let statement, but you can add that in. Okay, here, I'll add it for you. Let H represent height of box in centimeters. Okay, and no real roots here, so there's only one box that will do the trick. After you solve for the 3 dimensions, multiply them and check that it is a 500. Alright, so we're feeling great about the answer, and that's it for this sheet.